So they asked me to talk this morning. Again, my name's Jim Britton. I'm with the West Virginia Geologic Survey. I've been there too long. We're going to be talking about assessing mine pool geothermal potential in West Virginia using the coal bed mapping project. And that was put together early on in my career. We worked on that. It was a 5-year project that we're currently in year 31 on. So I gave this talk at another meeting, and I was going to title it "How to Make a Career Out of a 5-Year Project." So I've done a really good job at that. So before I go on talking about the mine pool, I need to talk a little bit about the coal bed mapping project that we put together. So it started in 1995 when the West Virginia State Legislature realized that coal companies on various properties were being taxed at a different rate depending on where the property was. There were coal bed name correlations, there were property correlations. They knew they were going to get themselves sued at the tax department level. So they asked us, or assigned us, the job of mapping all the coal in West Virginia. It's been done for years, but it was never done in a comprehensive manner. So this House Bill 2222 got us started and gave us the ability and the money to work on this. It was kind of slow going at the beginning because we didn't have a lot of cooperation from coal companies because, you know, it's proprietary information that they have and they weren't real big on sharing it with us. So the following year, they added a confidentiality clause that gave them the ability to give us the data and us the ability to keep it confidential. So we can use the data, we can publish derivatives of that data, but we can still keep that data confidential. And that really opened the door, the floodgates really, of data coming in. And for about 5 years, all we did was enter core data, coal records and things like that. Yeah. So, okay, making sure I'm on the same page. I think I went forward. Let me back up here. There we go. So in West Virginia, it's kind of a mess. We have 117 named coal seams. 85 of those we've mapped over the years, either seams or splits or derivatives thereof. And for each one of those, we've created structural contour maps, mined and remaining areas, total seam thickness, coal thickness, and parting grids, and geological discontinuities. Basically, we want to know why did they stop mining where they stopped. Was it, you know, the end of a property? Was it some geologic reason? You know, why? And we put together a drill hole database, and it contains over 38,000 confidential and public drill holes from all over the state. We had cooperation with the West Virginia Department of Tax and Revenue, company donations, private collections, our own field work. We did some of our own drilling. And we house about 15,000 feet of bored core in our buildings. We've had a lot more than that over the years, but we didn't have the facilities to store it, so we have a whole pile of tens of thousands of feet of core up the hill from us in a ditch. We recently got a new building. We're in the process of buying it, so we will never have to do that again. Some of the products that we put together, and first of all this is available at the WVGS.wvnet.edu, so it's available to the public. We put together this interactive coal mapping service, and basically on the right there you'll see the state of West Virginia, and each coal seam is representative and where it is in the state and all the derivative data that came from that. So you can use that to go and look at your property to see, you know, a lot of people use this to look for underground mine subsidence issues if you're buying new houses. From that all the way down to developing new mines, people use this data all the time. We put together this mine information database system. It has 58,000 map files in there containing over 92,000 maps. West Virginia is full of mining, and we're trying to capture it. We've not been able to find every mine map in the state. There are large areas, shouldn't say large areas, there are areas with large amounts of mining that we do not have any mine maps for. It's just so old. I'm sure somebody's got it in a closet somewhere, and periodically we get them. Right near our office, there's an area near Morgantown called the Mile Ground, and it's completely mined under. It's near the airport, and we have probably 30% of the mining represented with maps. We know it's there, we just don't have proof of it. So if we don't have proof, we don't put it in our database. Every record that we have in our database is available to the public unless it's confidential. So all these 58,000 documents you can get, all the drill holes you can get, it's all available there for researchers and people that are interested. And this program allows you to do searches based on coal name, company name, county, quad, whatever. You know, it's pretty robust there. And if there's something that you can't find, you contact us, we'll find it for you. We also have a coal analysis database. A guy named Bill Grady for about 40 years collected coal samples from all over the state, and we have about 50,000 physical coal samples in our possession that we've used for various rare earth element projects and things like that over the years. So we have derivative product coming from that. The data point distribution that we have through the state, each one of these little red dots represents a drill hole that we have somewhere in the state. Or data points that we've gleaned from underground mine maps, or field work, or geologist cores, or measured sections. So we have a lot of data in there. And again, most all that, unless it's confidential, is available to you. And you'll notice where it's red, that's where the coal seams are. Where it's gray, there aren't any coal. Except to the west, there are some scattered locations there. Those are the places where the coal has gotten extremely deep, and there's been some exploration. We don't always get that information. I think Pennsylvania maybe, or I know Kentucky, requires the logs to be given to the state. We don't have that in West Virginia. We're kind of behind the ball on that. But we have a lot of data out there to work with, over 3 million lines of stratigraphic data that we can use to make maps and things. So what we did early on was we realized there were some major correlation busts in the state. Coal seam A would go across an anticline into another county, and it would jump 2 or 3 seams, which was part of the reason people were getting taxed differently. So we spent years going back and doing these correlations, and this was a program called Stratifact that was put together probably in the mid-90s, and it's a DOS-based program that was way ahead of its time. We would take it to coal companies and show them, and they loved it. But you could actually do on-the-fly correlation changes, and it would display on screen and things like that. But they unfortunately went bankrupt, but we still use this program. We have to put a DOS simulator on our computer because it works better than anything we can get at a reasonable price. So anyway, we went through, and we realized, you know, early on that coal seams can be kind of difficult to map. And so what we did was we would find the blue areas up there. Those are the marine zones. Marine zones are very widespread throughout the state. So if you can at least figure out what marine zone you're between, you should know what coals you're looking at, and you can work back from that. The coals split like crazy. They come together, they disappear, they get sanded out. You know, you guys have, if you've done any geology, you realize stratigraphy can be a real pain in the neck. But we've got a pretty good handle on everything going on in the state. There was one area around the Cranberry region that we've had some problems with. Every geologist that I know of, we've had several that have studied it, have looked at it. If you look at it from the south going to the north versus the north going to the south, you can never make it match. I don't know why. There's something in there. We don't have enough drilling to figure it out, and we may never know. But that's just one of the ongoing things that we have to work with, and it's kind of fun if you like doing those kind of things. So West Virginia as a whole, we basically break it into a northern field and a southern field. And the northern field are generally the younger coals with higher sulfur. Lots of mining up there. That's where you find most of the Pittsburgh mining. And then the southern fields are older coal seams and lower sulfur. And this is based on the regional variations in the coal quality, the rank, and the age. Some of the coal to the north, where it says higher sulfur, you get a lot of abandoned acid mine drainage going on. In the southern part of the state, several cities actually use the mine waters for municipal water supplies. Beckley, West Virginia, Welch, West Virginia, a couple of those places are actually using it for their municipal water. And it's pretty good water. There's one place in the southern part of the state, in the Pocahontas No. 3 seam, that they're using that water to raise trout. So you know the water's pretty good. But anyway, I just wanted to show that there is a difference and a variation in the two parts of the state. So this is the stratigraphic column of the coals, younger upper left, older lower right. And what I did was I highlighted the seams that are currently being mined in the state. The blue are producing less than 1 million tons a year. The light green are producing more than 1 million tons a year. So there's still a lot of coal being mined. According to this, this is from the Miner Self-Safety and Training, we produced about 110 million tons last year. It's way down from the 180 that they used to do at one time, but you know, it's not what it used to be. It never will be. You know, all the easy stuff has been mined. Environmental regulations make it very difficult to open new mines. The market is difficult. They just said on the radio or on the news this morning that one of our big producers, the Itman number 5 mine, is going to be idled because of the tariff fears. So they thought that maybe that's going to be a problem. So one of the things Bill Grady looked at years and years ago, he started thinking, well, you know, there's other things in coal other than, you know, just sulfur and ash and things. So he started looking at the rare earths in coal. And so he put together this chart, which is pretty handy, and it's basically every coal seam, and he took the samples that he had worked, and he did all this work himself. He did all the chemistry and things. And he put together this chart showing areas of higher rare earth element concentrations in the coal. So early on, when the rare earths got exciting for everybody, we went back to this chart and were able to pick and choose some of the coals that we wanted to look at. And, you know, lo and behold, yes, they are high. Rare earth elements in coal are elevated. We found that it's not necessarily in the coal, it's more in the partings and the underclays, but there are a lot of rare earths around it. And we did a lot of sampling, and we worked with Tetra Tech to some extent several years ago on a project looking at these. Paul Zemkevich at the West Virginia Water Research Institute got to thinking. He's got a huge career dealing with acid mine water and water-related issues. He did this acid mine drainage rare earth element pilot plant. So what he did, he had the idea that if you can, you know, leach the water through a low pH, which in this case the water up at Mount Storm here is probably in the 3, high 2, low 3 range. He told me that if you can get acid mine drainage coming out under 4, that you can actually put one of these plants in and extract rare earths from the groundwater and make some money from it. So they put this plant up at Mount Storm, and it's worked so well that they're building another one down at Richard near Morgantown. And basically it's just a typical acid mine treatment plant with a little kicker off to the side that runs the water through, and they're sucking this rare earth out into some sort of a rare earth oxide. They've got these huge geotubes full of goo, and if you look at the upper right here, it shows above where the little truck is, it said 80% rare earth elements. In the document on the left, it said it was up to 90%, and I asked one of his guys, and he said, well, they originally expected 80% purity, but they've got it up to 90%, so they're pretty excited about that. I think currently they're making about enough money to run the plant. They're not really making much money, but you know, if you scale it up, I think it could be done, and there's places all over West Virginia this could be done. But this isn't what I'm supposed to be talking about. I'm supposed to be talking about mine pool geothermal things. So start out, this is a north central West Virginia, and the polygons you see on there are the Pittsburgh coal seam. We only extend a little bit into Pennsylvania because it's not our purview to go into Pennsylvania and do your guys' mapping. But you could see that you could start walking in Pittsburgh and end up way south in Clarksburg. You can do like 125, 130 miles underground and never have to come out. It's all one big void space. It's all full of water. So there's a lot of water out there. There's, you know, trillions of gallons of water that can be used just in that seam alone. This one shows the depth of overburden, you know, so in places it's right at the surface, and the deepest stuff's over 1,000 feet. That's as you go west. There's a big syncline that goes through, and a couple mines have gotten down to about sea level in depth, but they're starting to work their way back up that anticline. So I mean, I guess theoretically, if things continue, they could probably keep going towards the Ohio River. I don't know what'll happen with that. We'll all be dead and gone by that time, so it doesn't really matter. So originally, the Office of Energy, part of the Department of Commerce, approached us and asked us to look at a mine pool pump storage system. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. And they had heard something about up in the, you know, some in the hard rock areas where they were taking upper mines and lower mines, pumping the water into the upper one when the, you know, the price of electricity was a little bit lower, and then when the price of electricity went up, letting it go and running it through generators into a lower mine, and they just thought that would be a wonderful thing to do in West Virginia. Well, we all know that mines aren't hard rock, and about the time you start pumping 100 million gallons of water up and down and back and forth, you're going to turn it into pudding, probably full of rocks. So we told them that's not even going to work. It's not feasible in West Virginia. That's just the wrong kind of geology. But we did tell them as a kicker to that, or an addendum, I guess, to that report, why not look at geothermal? And that was before we knew what you guys were doing. So anyway, we have some advantages. We have mine water at about 55, 58 degrees. You all know this. Most of our mines are fairly shallow. If you remember back to the picture from the Pittsburgh, the deepest stuff's about 1,000 feet below the surface for the Pittsburgh, but a lot of it's way, way lower. We have some huge reservoirs of water. Some mines are multi-billion gallon reservoirs. We have multiple levels of mining. I told you there are 88 mine seams that we looked at. There are places in West Virginia, there are 7 overlying layers of mining if you were to drill straight down. Not that you could use all of them, but there is a lot of mining. And there is some proximity to industrial and government sites and cities, things like that. West Virginia is not as developed as Pennsylvania or other places. A lot of these mines are in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and the only way you're going to get to them is if you want to get to them, because you're just not going to stumble onto them. So those probably aren't quite as exciting, but if stuff around Morgantown, Clarksburg, Fairmont, Wheeling, things like that, there are some areas that have underground mine pools that could be used. So we talked to them about that, and about a year later they got back to us and asked us to start looking at, they gave us multiple sites to look at, and they were doing this in relation to the public school system. So they were building some new schools, and they wanted to see what's the possibility of using the geothermal for these areas. So in the process of doing that, we put together, we're one step away from automating it. We've got a methodology, but we haven't actually done it to the point of automating it, because they haven't talked to us in, several months, and we decided, until we hear from them, we're not going to fool with it. But we do have a process where we collect all the various criteria about the mining under an area. So, we tell you the seams of mines of coal that are there. We collect all the available mine maps, and we have thousands of mine maps, and we're always getting more mine maps. 2 years ago, I got a call from Pittston down in northern Virginia, which was about 3 hours south of us, and they had a mine office that was an area, the room was probably about this size, full of mine maps, and they said, you've got 2 hours, you can take what you want. So we had a 24-foot box truck, and we just started throwing maps in there, and we filled the truck up. Turns out a lot of them were from Virginia, a lot of them from Kentucky, but we got, 3,000 or 4,000 good maps, which we haven't even got to process yet. So maybe some of these areas that we don't have are included in that. I don't know. Anyway, so we collect all the available mine maps. Obviously, if you've worked with mine maps, there's various vintages of mine maps. There's various skill sets of the people that put them together. Some of them are magnificent, and some of them look like they're hand-drawn with a crayon, but we've got them. We work on the depth. We need to know the depth of the mining. We need to know the thickness of the mining. Is the mine flooded or not flooded or partially flooded? We have a program that tells us that. We can calculate the estimated storage capacity of the mine, and we give an assumed acidity. If you're going to be doing anything with that, you need to know, am I going to be working with pH 2 water, or am I going to work with pH 7 water? It's kind of nice to know. And the type of mine. Was it traditional mining, long wall? How was it done? So we started looking at mines only with at least 100 million gallons of storage capacity, because we thought, if we're going to shoot, let's shoot big. Plus, it lowers the number of mines that we had to look at. So if we looked at them with 100,000 gallons of storage capacity, we look at the proximity to the outcrop. If the coal seam is above drainage, you don't want communication with the outside where it's going to be draining out. So we looked at all the proximity to the outcrop. We wanted to have at least 250 feet of barrier around a down dip area of the mine so that we didn't get drainage. We don't want down dip portals, obviously, because water will get out. We collected the mining dates of all the available maps and all the available maps. So, and we tried not to use the oldest map. We tried to use the newest map, which should have been the better one. We put together new structural contours because we would need to know how the subsurface looks. Do you have a syncline that's going to hold water? Do you have undulating surfaces that'll have various places that will hold water? And that's important. And we wanted to look at the proximity to adjoining mines. Like the Pittsburgh I showed you before, some of those mines are interconnected for miles and miles and miles. Some of them are standalone. So like the best possible scenario would be a large mine under drainage below, you know, with nothing else around it. So you basically have a captive bunch of water. And again, we looked at the mining type and the age. So our GIS guy, who is kind of a guru with this stuff, he put together a program, and it was able to calculate roughly the original storage capacity of the mine. And it's a rough calculation based on, you know, thickness. We have our coal thickness grids and the footprint of the mine. And so this data is only as good as the mapping we were given and the amount of data that we have to work with. But we took that original storage and we divided it by 2 because underground mines usually, you know, you're only going to get about 50% of the mine or the coal in a mine anyway. So we divided that by 2 to give a more realistic number. So we give a potential storage of about 50%, and we went working with that. So as a case study, they gave us an area in Beckley, West Virginia for an elementary school down there that they were interested in possibly putting geothermal in. And what we did is we would take about a 1 mile radius around the point was where the school is, and look at all the mining within that area at all seams, every piece of information we could find, pull it together, put together structural maps, overburden, look at the aerophotography to see if there's any reasons why it shouldn't be there, looked at all the data points, and just try to amass as much data as possible and then come up with you know, is this a viable option or not? Obviously, if there's no mining within a mile of the circle, then that's not going to happen. And there were some instances where they gave us school locations that were not close to anything. So anyway, that was the one that is going to eventually be a computer generated, you know, push the button and it does it for you. But again, it's not to that point yet. But we did think that it was a real potential. And so this, we looked at this Academy of Careers that's also in Beckley with another area, and you know, there's lots of water down there. It's the good stuff. One of the problems is this being Beckley, that is the area that we're looking at for geothermal is also the municipal water supply. So it's got to be a closed loop system. You can't be pumping water out and down and turning it, getting it all muddied up and turbid. So you got to, that's things they have to think about. So it would be a closed loop system if it worked. They have not went forward with that yet. The other one was this Mount View High School, and they were really excited about this. It's in McDowell County. It's a very depressed southern West Virginia coal town, or near a coal town, actually a school that sits out in the middle between a bunch of different locations. But they had just built this school, and we have some Pocahontas 3 mining underneath of it, and it hit all the check boxes. Everything was wonderful, except that once we sent it off to the engineers, they said it's too deep. They couldn't at this point do it economically based on the depth of it. That's one of it. It was about 850 feet deep, and they weren't comfortable going with that. So the results that we put together, we generate reports for the individuals. As of this point, we've done 15 school locations for the Office of Energy. And I'd like to point out we are not engineers. We only play engineers in our minds. We give you the geologic information. You can do with it what you will. We evaluate the potential for proposed mine pool geothermal projects. So you give us a location, we'll tell you, is there at least the potential there for you to go forward? Is it worth your time looking at it or not? The best part is this leverages previous work that we've done with the coal bed mapping project to branch out in new directions. You know, with the coal bed mapping, I thought that we were only going to be doing mapping for the rest of my life. Now we're looking at rare earth elements, we're looking at geothermal, we're looking at some other things that are going on. So, you know, I don't know what the future holds. I would have never guessed this would have happened 30 years ago. And the other good thing about this is it forces another QC level to look at the data that we've done. And we have found some errors, and we have found new data, and we've improved our model. You know, it's a dynamic system. It's always trying to be updated. We're always trying to add new data. So I think it's the best kind of QC because it's being used. We have this all out on the web for people to use, and we get a lot of storms in Morgantown lately, which take the power out, which takes the servers out, and it isn't 5 minutes before a contractor or a coal miner or somebody is calling us, hey, why can't we get to this data? We need it. So it is being used, which is good. I was really hoping that it would be useful for something. We get lots of hits on our website looking at this data. So if you need information from us, I can get you anything you need. If it's not available on our site, I can get you information that's not there. Most everything, like I said, is available except the confidential. I'm not giving you the confidential data because they told me when they did that legislation that if you give it away, you get a $1,000 fine and a year in jail for every data point that you give away. And I'm not going to jail for any of you. And if that's all I got.
Try it this way.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, since we are running a bit ahead, that's great. I thought I'd use conference organizer's privilege and ask a question or two, and Mike a view as well regarding this topic, if you care to weigh in. So, Jim, I noticed, and also in Mike's presentation, there wasn't. Maybe there wasn't a chance to address this, but I'm curious, when you talk about the mine water, the nature, the character of the mine water itself, is there any consideration that you would recommend regarding, say, the pH? I mean, with regard to the heat exchanger or whatever other equipment comes in contact with the mine water, is there certain concerns that you would point out if the pH is especially low, say 3, versus more of a neutral pH or a high pH?
So one of the things that I mentioned was we give them an evaluation of supposed acidity of the water. There is a mine that's spewing water one county to the east of me that has a pH of about 2. So it's really acidic. The stuff down in the southern part of the state is pretty neutral. So when we don't give specifics on that, if it gets to the next level, then it would go to the DEP or it would go to Paul Zemkevich at the Water Research Institute. We don't have the ability to go out and sample.
Okay. Mike, would you care to weigh in on that? So the question is regarding the pH of the water. Any special considerations?
Sure. The water is mostly corrosive, so you have to use stainless steel for heat exchanger, and like I said, I mentioned use plastic pipe because for two different reasons. One of them is that plastic pipe doesn't corrode with the pH, but it also doesn't deposit much of residue on it. And the other biggest thing with mine water geothermal is to keep the oxygen out of it, and that's the biggest problem. And that's one of the benefits of taking a look at treated mine water, is that there's a potential to use that treated water, which has about the same temperature.
Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, interesting point too about the temperature. In the popular mind, when you think of geothermal, you think hot springs in Colorado or something, but it's interesting to me that you're not talking about that much of a temperature differential, really, are you?
No, most of the water we're looking at is 55 to 58 degrees. In the eastern panhandle, there's an area where there is higher temperature waters associated with, some possible underground geothermal things going on. I'm not involved in that process, but we are going to probably be doing some drilling over there in the near future. I think WVU drilled a hole near Morgantown. They went down 10,000 feet maybe, and they were looking at the potential of actually hot water coming out. I was not involved in that project either. So basically, I'm only worried about the mine pool water. And one of the folks mentioned the data centers. And, data centers, everybody wants data centers. And I don't know if you're familiar with Blackwater Falls, Canaan Valley, they're talking about putting a data center in that general area. And people are up in arms about that, but, you know, there's underground mine water and they can use it for cooling. And this one, I think they said, was going to produce more power and use it than the VEPCO power plant, which supplies northern Virginia. And they're going to have a reserve of 30 million gallons of diesel fuel on site in case their gas supply goes out. So it's huge. I mean, you know, you can think what you want about data centers. I'm not a big fan of them, but, you know, it is, you know, that is probably the future, so.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, just to be clear, what I meant was regarding the temperature differential does not have to be, it isn't that large and doesn't have to be. And yet Mike's cost numbers that he showed are, you know, I think they're real. So, you know, again, it doesn't, we don't need that big temperature differential for this to work very well. So maybe we should, we have another question. Mike, would you mind? Jim, would you mind?
If you don't mind.
No, it's good.
I might not need the microphone, but I'll take it anyway. I'm familiar with geothermal heat pumps. They attempted to put them in at Ohio State in a karst system and ended up with fountains. So I'm wondering about drilling in mine areas and if you've seen any issues with the actual drilling for the geothermal heat exchangers, actually either of you. This was actually on Ohio State's main campus and they ended up having to shut it down and move it to a different location. And for me, karst and mine systems are really similar in a lot of ways. So I'm wondering if there are engineering concerns in these areas.
We try to stay a long way away from karst areas. We,
Right.
yeah,
The analogy is that there are openings underground that contain water.
yes, so we have a lot of that in the state, you know, and basically what we've done is told them of the potential. They have never moved forward on anything that we've done. You know, West Virginia is great at coming up with ideas, but terrible at follow through. Every time you look at the news, hey, they got a $15 billion building being built, you know, to do cracking, and then 2 months later, well, that's out. And, you know, so we get a lot of proposals that come out that never follow through. So hopefully something will come of this.
Okay. Oh, we have one more? Let me make sure this is working. I don't hear anything. It is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple questions on the coal bed mapping project.
Okay.
Does the map itself contain the coal deposits or the mined coal deposits for the state?
The map will show areas that have been mined, and various maps will show various other levels of data. Some of them will show elevation of coal, some of them will show elevation and thickness of coal, but you should at least have the extent of the coal that's mined, including the pillars that are left in the mine.
So, for example, there wouldn't be any data in the map for like the Monongahela National Forest because it's not mineable.
There are mines in the National Forest. Yeah, and I mean, if you're interested, get a hold of us. I could find out what they've got on that.
Okay.
There's not a lot of them, but there are some.
And does it include the type of coal, whether it's metallurgical coal? I mean, West Virginia is all bituminous,
On the
right?
mine map itself?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Usually not. I mean, sometimes you'll see some coal analyses with it, but usually that's a separate kind of document, and that data is not on there.
Got it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, maybe we can hold off now for the, thank you, Jim. More questions can come at the panel discussion.